The lake was a wasteland now, a cracked, sun-scorched pit where my fishing boat once glided. Police were cuffing the HOA president, Margaret Klein, while biologists in hazmat suits combed the mud, their faces grim. Endangered fish lay gasping in the wreckage, and I stood there, a retired lawyer turned unlikely warrior, watching the chaos unfold. My name's Thomas Reed. After 30 years battling in corporate law, I moved to Willow Lake for peace. My property sloped to the water's edge, framed by cypress trees, their roots dipping into clear shallows. The lake was a mirror at dawn, alive with herons and bass. My deed was clear. I owned half the lake, and the other half belonged to the Willow Grove Homeowners Association. I was fine with that. I hosted fish fries, taught kids to cast lines, and swapped stories with neighbors, tech workers and bankers escaping the city. For a few months, it was paradise. Trouble started subtly. HOA emails, dripping with polite venom, hinted at concerns over my fishing, calling it unpermitted water use. I ignored them. The covenants allowed fishing, and I was on my dock. I kept hosting barbecues, believing reason would win, as it always had in courtrooms. Then, one morning, I woke to a nightmare. Diesel pumps roared on the HOA's side, sucking the lake dry through hoses that fed tanker trucks. The waterline dropped before my eyes. I grabbed my phone, recording everything: pumps, hoses, the shrinking lake. Margaret Klein stood there, arms crossed, her HOA polo shirt a badge of power. "Mosquito control," she said, her smile tight. "I didn't approve this," I shot back. "This lake's half mine." She shrugged, claiming the board had voted for community safety. I pointed to stranded fish and shrinking puddles. "This isn't safety. It's destruction." She turned away, dismissing me. I kept filming, capturing dying fish and fleeing birds. A neighbor, Walter, an old-timer who predated the HOA, whispered that the board had secretly voted to drain the lake for a gazebo or reflection pool, something pretty. My stomach churned. I spent days digging through records. No permits, no surveys, no approvals. The HOA had acted like they were above the law. Then, wading through the mud to save fish, I spotted something that turned my anger to fury. Tiny, wriggling speckled shiners, an endangered species. I called the state environmental department. "Don't touch anything," the officer said. "Document it all." Within hours, Karen Walsh, a no-nonsense environmental officer, arrived. She surveyed the devastation and muttered, "They're in deep trouble." Federal agents from the Fish and Wildlife Service followed, setting up triage for the fish and collecting evidence. By Monday, news trucks lined the street. Willow Lake Massacre. One reporter called it panning the dying shoreline. Social media erupted with hashtag #SaveWillowLake. The HOA fought back, slapping a legal notice on my door, accusing me of interfering and threatening fines. I laughed, filing it in my evidence binder. They spread flyers calling me a troublemaker and held secret meetings to spin the narrative. But a leaked email chain from Margaret herself, joking about flushing the fish problem and no more slimy critters, changed everything. I forwarded it to investigators with a note: evidence of intent. Public pressure exploded. Petitions demanded arrests. At an emergency town hall, Margaret tried to play victim, preaching community safety. I didn't go alone. My environmental lawyer, Sarah Conway, strode in, her briefcase heavy with evidence. "My client has concerns," she said, handing Margaret a packet of damning documents, communications, endangered species records, proof of no permits. "These have been sent to federal agencies and the media." The room froze. Margaret's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. The feds moved fast. Agents raided the HOA office, seizing computers and files. Margaret and her vice president, Daniel Holt, faced charges: environmental destruction, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Board members resigned, citing personal reasons, but panic was clear. News outlets ran headlines: HOA president faces federal fraud. The HOA's insurance bailed, leaving members to foot legal bills. Neighbors faced massive fees, and lawsuits piled up: mine for property damage, Walter's for trespass, others for emotional distress. Margaret tried blaming the contractor, but he produced texts from her ordering a quick, quiet drain. No need to tell the tree huggers, one read. The DOJ added conspiracy charges. The community unraveled. For sale signs sprouted and property values tanked. Then, a storm hit, flooding HOA homes without the lake to hold water. Foundations cracked, mold spread, and insurance companies refused claims, citing the HOA's actions. I focused on healing. With permits secured, I worked with volunteers to restore my half of the lake, reintroducing shiners and sunfish. Dragonflies returned, frogs croaked, and the water shimmered again. The HOA held its first honest election. Walter became president, and the lake was renamed Willow Lake officially. A carved fish sculpture, inscribed with "Respect the Water," stood as a reminder. At dawn, I launched my boat, coffee in hand, and drifted. Margaret's trial loomed, her empire gone, her future bleak. The lake thrived, fish leaped, and peace returned. I smiled, knowing justice had prevailed, not with fists, but with evidence and persistence. What do you think? Was my fight worth it? Or should I have let it go? Share your thoughts below, especially on power abuse and injustice in everyday life. Take a stand. Let's hear your voice.